Hi everyone. In yesterday's class, it was asked, how do I project images onto the perspective views in the Illustrator perspective tool? Now, some of you were looking for workflows around it, and they work pretty well for the most part, and that is to trace the art so that you can convert it into vector files and then go ahead and project it onto one of the sides. But if you want to maintain the integrity of the actual bitmap that you're trying to project, then this is the workflow that I would suggest you follow. First, let's go ahead and activate the viewport tool in Illustrator so that we have our, not the viewport, the perspective tool. And let me go ahead and stretch out the perspective, the vanishing points for my perspective drawing. So now with that done, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and go into another file over here in Illustrator where I have a bitmap painting of something I just grabbed from the web. So this is Van Gogh Starry Night. And what I want to do at this point is I want to create a rectangle that matches the dimensions of this painting. So let me go ahead and actually turn off the opacity on this. Let's go ahead and create that rectangle to roughly approximate the same dimensions as the painting. Then I'm going to change the color of that so we can see what we're doing. Let me go ahead and switch the color to like red. And let's go ahead and select it here, Control-C or Command-C on the Mac to copy this, then bring it back into my previous artboard and paste it. Now, since I have the number one panel, the blue one, it selected this, what I'm about to paste is going to paste on this side. So let's go ahead and, actually, if I paste it just like this, it's going to paste flat. But once I switch my tool from the perspective grid to the actual perspective selection tool and I move it, it's going to map itself onto that particular wall, onto that particular side. So now with that tool selected, remember, if you don't see your handles around your artwork, make sure that you go under View and make sure that your bounding box is activated. Otherwise, you will not be able to resize this on that wall. So let's say I want to make this smaller, but I still want to maintain proportions. Let's go ahead and click one of the handles and press Shift so that I constrain proportions. And that way the rectangle will retain the proportions based on the artwork that I created it on. So let's say I want the painting to take about that much of the space on the wall. Now for this workflow, what you need to do is you need to figure out where you want the art to go and about what size you need it to be, because once you do what we're about to do, you cannot resize the artwork. Basically what it is you're going to project that artwork onto this rectangle as if you were mapping it onto that rectangle. How to do so? You need to follow these steps. Once you have the rectangle where you want it, or the shape, it doesn't have to be a rectangle, it could be a circle. Once you have it where you need it to be within your perspective grid, go back and select the actual artwork. Let me switch my tool to the Move tool so that I can move the rectangle away. Select the actual bitmap, Control-C or Command-C on the Mac to copy it, go back to the perspective artboard, and then I'm going to paste the artwork. Now what I want to do is I want to place that artwork behind that rectangle. So I am going to move it down the stack by sending it backward, and I'm going to place it behind the actual rectangle. The rectangle needs to be underneath or behind the actual geometry where you want to project it onto. Now with that done, let's select both of them by shift selecting both pieces and then going under Object, Envelope Distort, Make with Top Object, or Alt Control C or Command Control C on the Command Option C on the Mac. When you do that, the painting is projected onto the geometry, and basically that's all you can do with this. You cannot resize it anymore. You can resize it, but it breaks the actual perspective. So if you go to your perspective selection tool and you try to do something with it, you cannot move it, you cannot resize it from here. However, you can actually resize it from your properties window. So if I select my width and I start decreasing its size, it will maintain proportions, but it will start losing my perspective, as you can see. So basically it blocks the ability for you to move or to size the artwork once you have mapped it onto the geometry. This is the reason why I told you need to make sure that you know where you're going to place the artwork before you map it onto your perspective geometry. So with that done, the key thing to remember is that you need to make sure that when you're placing these things and resizing the actual geometry, you need to make sure that you actually see the bounding box Make sure that that's activated so that you can actually see it. Resize the artwork, place it where you need it with the perspective selection tool, and then map it by using Object, Envelope Distort, Make with Top Object. I hope this answers the question.